Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Madeline, this is Made with Books, and I'm very sorry, but today I'm going to have to wear sunglasses. The weather is beautiful, which is why I'm filming outside. There's no wind today, so hopefully the acoustics are going to be better this time around. And yeah, I just wanted to make use of the sun, so filming outside again. Today I'm going to do my first review of one of the books that I was judging for the BookTube prize. I was judging fiction group G, and the book I'm going to talk about is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. Now I'm going to talk at the end where I ranked this book and why, but first let's talk about the book a bit. So Miracle Creek is Angie Kim's debut novel. A little bit about Angie Kim herself. She moved as a child from South Korea to Baltimore. She worked as a lawyer and she now lives in Virginia with her family. And a lot of these aspects come into play, which is just why I wanted to bring them up. So you can see that she sort of used her own experiences, and I'm pretty sure that they helped shape this book. So what is Miracle Creek about? The title itself refers to a place, a little town in Virginia called Miracle Creek, and the Yo family, Young and Park Yo, settled there with their daughter Mary. Parents are both immigrants from South Korea. They immigrated into the United States. They first lived elsewhere, and now they moved to Miracle Creek to start their Miracle Submarine, is what they call it. And basically what they provide is an oxygen treatment. Now that is actually a thing. What it does is it's supposed to help people sort of get a really large amount of oxygen at a specific time. So they sort of take these dives in what is called the submarine. So you put on these helmets and you breathe pure oxygen. I think it's pure oxygen for the time that you're in the treatment. It's always like an hour long. And the idea is to help people with different kind of problems. It's supposed to help with things like autism, with infertility. There are a set number at a time within the submarine. And the crux of the book basically is, with such an oxygen treatment, you obviously have a huge risk, because if oxygen catches on fire, it is very explosive. So what happens in August 2008 in this book is that there is an explosion at the Miracle Submarine, and there are several people in there at this time. Now, 2 people die, a young child dies. His name is Henry. He was dealing with autism. Also, the mother of another child dealing with autism died in there. And then you have other people that were seriously injured. A man who was in there for infertility treatment. He tried to help others and severely burned his hands. So as well as the daughter of the Yo family, Mary, she was running towards it when she saw that it caught on fire, as was her father. They were both running towards it to stop it, and they both get injured. Mary has a permanent scar in her face, and her father is paralyzed. The rest of the book is set 1 year later, and that is when the trial is happening to determine who is responsible for this explosion. And right at the start you see there is a lot of secrets going around, things people keep for themselves, and that they are not completely honest in court. The person that is said to have started the fire is actually the mother of the little boy that died. Throughout the book you're wondering, did she do it or not? And her name is Elizabeth, so she is the one that is being charged with the crime of setting the fire that caused the explosion. It very much looks like she's guilty. She usually went in with her child with the dice. With this one she didn't. She made sure that her son had a specific had put on him, and that was one of the ones that was directly affected by the fire. So she sure looks guilty. The question is she really? Now, the way the book is set up is that you have 4 sort of large parts, and those are the days of the trial. So the first to the 4th day, that is when the trial ends. Within these parts you have the story told from all the different perspectives. So you get the different perspectives of the Yule family, you get Elizabeth's perspective, you get the perspective of another mom that was in here, you get the perspective of the man that got his hands burned, and some other ones as well. And these constant changes in perspective, every chapter is like told from another perspective, but you do have repetition, so you do get the same characters over and over again eventually. But because of that, you know, it creates obviously a lot of suspense sometimes, because things leave off at a certain point and you want to know more, but you're moving into another character story, which sometimes makes it, you know, you want to stay with one character longer. So like it creates both suspense, but at the same time it can sometimes leave you a bit wanting. As I said, there's lots of secrets, a lot of unspoken things that slowly become unraveled throughout the story and that you find out. I would say that this is definitely a page turner, because you do want to figure out what happens and you are unsure of what really properly happened until pretty much to the end. There's also one thing that happened between the daughter of the Yules and Matt, the guy who got his hands burned, and that is hinted at throughout the entire novel and is revealed fairly late in the book. And for me it was just a bit too much of the hinting. Like, obviously you want to set the stage, and you know, you do have these sort of things in novels oftentimes where things are hinted at and only come out slowly over time. But I thought that one was a bit like, it was mentioned again and again and it wasn't revealed, and it was sort of like, yes, mention it a few times in the beginning and then eventually do the reveal. But that was a bit too much for me. I will say, while I did enjoy this, I did put it in the last place in my ranking. Now the reason for that is that the book felt a little bit too by the numbers for me. What I mean by that is, you know, it's very structured, it's a very clear narrative, so it feels almost a bit too sort of too much. Everything is put in slots and everything has this, you know, this big overarching structure and everything needs to fit in tightly. That was one thing. The other thing is that I think this is too neatly wrapped up in the end. So Kim doesn't really leave much open for interpretation in the end. She wraps everything up in very much detail, so you sort of have the reveal at the end, and I think shortly after that it could have cut off, but then you get quite a bit more about what happens with all the characters, what are the repercussions, what does it mean on an ethical level, and what does it imply culturally and everything. And I thought it would have been nice to leave a bit more open for the readers to interpret. It's not pure happiness and joy at the end, but some things I thought were a bit too much of trying to, I guess, consolidate what happens, because you do have a child dying in here, so that's really, really horrible, of course, and it just felt a bit too neatly wrapped up in the end for me. I will say though that I think that this book is perfect if you are looking for a book to read with a book club, because there's definitely a lot to discuss in here. You have the struggles of being an immigrant, you have the pressure that is looming over the next generation in immigrant families because the parents give up everything to have a better future for their children. You do have racism, of course. You have the struggles that come with being a parent. You have the sometimes additional struggles that come with being a parent to a disabled child. You have difficult questions raised like, do parents love their kids unconditionally, and even if they do, does that mean that they always want them around? You have in particular questions regarding motherhood, what it means to be a good mother, what it's like, as I said, to have a child with a mental disability. What about comparing your child with a mental disability to the child of somebody else who has the same mental disability but maybe on a different spectrum, as does Elizabeth, whose son dies, and Kit, the mother that dies, who also has a child in the submarine at the time that survives, however. You have the US-American justice system, you have lawyers that sort of have to play the game, pretend not to hear certain things, all these things. So there is really a lot that you can talk about, especially in a group. I think this would be a great book for that, for sure. And like I said, there's a lot that I enjoyed in here, there's a lot to unpack. If you want to discuss this book with other people, and it is a fast-paced read, so I would still recommend this, but again, a little too neatly wrapped up, a little too by the numbers, but this is a debut novel and I think for that it is pretty strong. And sun is going away, so I can take my sunglasses off and no longer look like some kind of movie diva. And so yeah, I would still recommend this if you are interested after hearing me talk about it. And I will in the end give a trigger warning for sexual assault and violence against a child. So if any of these things sound like you don't want to pick up the book, you've been, you know, made aware. So yeah, that's all I have about Miracle Creek by Angie to Kim. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye guys!